So they shot down, obviously, the F-15 jet, which sparked this whole search and rescue operation. Then they shot down at least one A-10 Warthog aircraft. An F-16 was also hit. They also hit at least 2 Black Hawk helicopters and forced a KC-135 to make an emergency landing. But, of course, Trump still claims that Iran has run out of all of their air defenses. About a day and a half ago, we saw something pop up on our news feeds that collectively didn't really shock anybody, but I guess it shocks U.S. CENTCOM. That being that Iran announced and provided some footage that they had shot down another U.S. fighter jet in the skies over Qeshm Island in the Persian Gulf. All right. Now, it wasn't really clear what was hit here. There were some people saying that this was a drone. There was a good chunk of time that went by before we had any sort of confirmation that this actually was, in fact, a U.S. fighter jet, and it actually was taken down over Iranian soil. This was not something that was taken down over the Iraqi border. This was not something that was taken down, in a country neighboring Iran, but, not able to be reached if, in fact, the pilots were still alive. In fact, not too long after we saw that shot of the fighter jet getting taken down, U.S. CENTCOM came out and said, claim Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it downed an enemy fighter jet over Qeshm Island in the Strait of Hormuz. Fact. All U.S. fighter aircraft are accounted for. Iran's IRGC has made the same false claim at least half a dozen times. So I didn't really know what to make of this. All U.S. fighter aircraft are accounted for? What does that mean? They're accounted for? Well, you can account for something and say, yeah, we account for it and it's down in the soil of, the Iranian desert. Accounting for something doesn't necessarily mean that it's, back home on a U.S. military base or at the what is it called? The Leavenworth or Leven Air Base in the UK or some air base in the Middle East. Doesn't mean that it's back home and safe. Accounted for just means where it is. And it turns out that they did account for it, but they accounted for it in a bunch of pieces and flames crashed in the middle of the Iranian desert. Okay, so U.S. CENTCOM tweeted this out. I responded. I said, delete your account, because we do actually have photo proof that a U.S. F-15E had been shot down over Iran. Okay, so let's get into this. The F-15 Iran shot down bears a symbol indicating that it was stationed at the Lakenheath base in the United Kingdom, showing, of course, that the U.S. is not just the only Western participant in this conflict. It is an Anglo-American Zionist affair. Oh, boy. Then we got the shot of the ejected chair, the ejected seat, and the parachute, okay? Oh, you got Hollywood here versus the reality. So the Iranian media associated with the IRGC uploaded this photo of what appears to be an F-15E ejected chair pilot seat with a parachute attached, but we had no real indication where the pilots were. And the F-15E is a 2-man crew. So the search began. Iranian state TV came out and offered a valuable reward for whoever located the downed American pilots in Iran if they were still alive. And even Iranian businessmen got in on the fun. They said that they would offer $60,000 to anyone who found the downed American F-15 crew. Even an Iranian Olympic athlete offered his entire collection of championship medals for any Iranian who could put a location on where these fighter jet crew members were hiding out in Iran. Then the United States did something absolutely insane. I never actually thought that they would do this. I will admit, This is a ballsy move. This is a very ballsy move. They decided to send in at least 2, some people say 3 or more Black Hawk search and rescue helicopters, as well as a refueling aircraft into Iran. Now, if you're wondering why they were flying so low over the Iranian soil, the reason is pretty simple. By flying this low and hugging the mountains in Iran the best they could with about a 1,000-meter flight ceiling, elevation ceiling on this flight, they were doing their best to avoid the Iranian air defenses. Okay, Iranian air defenses are, at least the ones that they're using to shoot down these fighter jets, are only able to be used, really, if you're shooting targets that are far away. It's very difficult to utilize these surface air missiles for shooting targets that are flying this low and hugging the mountainsides. And that's exactly what they were doing. And it seems as though they did an okay job of that, because not all of their aircraft were shot down. And it's still a bit unclear how many were shot down in total. But we do have information that some were downed, okay? But first, we did have confirmation from Axios and Israeli Channel 12, and Iran did not deny this, that one of the 2 American F-15 crew members were reportedly evacuated after their fighter jet was shot down over Iran. The search for the second pilot was still ongoing as of 7:02 p.m. local time yesterday, and we don't have any indication where that second pilot is. Now, if you're wondering how the U.S. managed to do something like this, well, first of all, they did pull off a very, very ballsy mission to send in those Black Hawk search and rescue helicopters. They sent in A-10 Warthog jets as well that were equipped with anti-drone capabilities, as well as even refueling aircraft, as you saw in that last video. But also, when fighter jet pilots eject from their down jets, they do have a mechanism that is attached to U.S. search and rescue teams. It's a GPS mechanism that gives them real-time monitoring as to their location. So it's not as if the U.S. is just out in the dark searching with no real indication as to where these these fighter jet crew may actually be located. They do have real-time monitoring available, but the Iranians came out and gave a statement saying it appears as though the Americans are unable to identify where these, fighter jet pilot crew members actually are, because they're not flying where we would expect them to fly. So if they're not flying where they'd expect to fly, that means one of 2 things. That means either, yes, they have no idea where they are, the GPS may have malfunctioned, or maybe they're trying something new. Maybe they're doing something that the Iranians are, some sort of search and rescue operation that the Iranians are not aware of. Maybe there's some protocol that the Iranians are not familiar with, okay? Now, I'll let you be the judge of which one we saw play out over the last 24 hours, because as the U.S. was searching, we saw Iranian villagers attempting to shoot down the search and rescue helicopters with bolt-action rifles. It was incredible to watch. We had at least one U.S. Black Hawk helicopter that was struck by an Iranian missile during the search operations for the missing pilot, according to Mehr news agency. Iranian police were also opening fire on U.S. Black Hawk search and rescue helicopters. And we did have confirmation that 2 U.S. Air Force HH-60G Pavehawk combat search and rescue helicopters were in fact hit by Iranian fire. Not 1, but 2. And one of them was significantly damaged in the front of the helicopter. Iran, shortly after these major deployments of search and rescue teams began, scrambled their fighter jets for the first time during the war to confront American search and rescue teams. Not too long after that, we had another U.S. fighter jet, F-16C, which declared an emergency alert after its operations in Iran. Word was it managed to limp all the way back to a U.S. military base in the region. But, of course, the famed A-10 Warhog did not fare as well as that F-16 that managed to get back to U.S. base. Just a few days after the U.S. doubled its A-10S Warhog fleet in the Middle East, deploying 18 more of the planes, we saw that Iran managed to shoot down at least one. Iran is now claiming 2 A-10 Warhog planes in the Persian Gulf. Here is footage of one of them getting shot down. I don't think that there's going to be any search and rescue for the crew of this jet. I don't think so. The Iranians quickly responded with some decentralized mosaic meme warfare of their own. As you can imagine, it's not just their air defenses and missile capabilities that operate in a mosaic defense strategy, but also their meme warfare online. And this was the craziest thing about Americans are literally the most propagandized country on the face of the earth. This is the response from former U.S. Marine combat fighter pilot Lieutenant Colonel Amy McGrath, who literally almost became a U.S. senator. She had a very contested race for the U.S. Senate. This was her response to the U.S. fighter jet getting shot down over Iran, if you can believe it. Take a listen.
Sort of this same thing in Iraq and Afghanistan as well. If you're going to be picked up by somebody who is going to turn you over to the Iranian, forces that are going to use you and capture you, or is the population happy that you're there and want to help you? That we don't know. And so anybody that gets shot down over that space is having to deal with that uncertainty.
That uncertainty. Such uncertainty, right? It's not like the rural villagers all across the entire region where these jets went down were running through the mountains with bolt-action rifles, waiting for the opportunity to spot one of these fighter jet pilot crew members. It's not like the police and the villagers in the mountainsides were shooting at Black Hawk helicopters with their bolt-action rifles. Totally not like that, right? As if they were, running through the mountains with Iranian Islamic Republic of Iran flags, searching for these crew members. No. In fact, according to Lieutenant Colonel Amy McGrath, she claims that maybe the Iranian people will be happy that these crew members are there. They'll be happy. They'll be so happy that a few moments before they had been firing missiles down upon civilians in Iran, and now they're going to welcome them and invite them in for some kebab and lula and some shisha and some tea. Yeah. That totally makes sense, right? First, they're bombing hospitals and universities. The next, they're being welcomed with open arms by the Iranian civilians. Absolutely insane and delusional. The Iranian Khatam al-Anbiya put out a statement saying today, despite the enemy claiming it fully controls Iran's airspace, the air defenses of the IRGC targeted and destroyed an F-15E fighter jet. Search operations are still ongoing. The armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran continue to severely punish aggressors by carrying out powerful blows in Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, and elsewhere. And then, of course, this morning, we saw Iran also put some icing on the cake by launching a drone strike against an American CH-47 Chinook in Kuwait yesterday. Maybe that was the same Chinook used to kidnap President Maduro. Who knows? So this is the update as of last night of all of the different aircraft that Iran had shot down or hit as they were flying over Iran. So they shot down, obviously, the F-15 jet, which sparked this whole search and rescue operation. Then they shot down at least one A-10 Warthog aircraft. An F-16 was also hit. They also hit at least 2 Black Hawk helicopters and forced a KC-135 to make an emergency landing. But, of course, Trump still claims that Iran has run out of all of their air defenses. CNN, if you can believe it, is now calling balls and strikes. They said that this is a huge blow to the Trump administration. No, this is a huge blow to the paper tiger that is the U.S. Air Force. Take a listen.
This is reporting from, 3 U.S. officials, so my colleague Haley Britsky, Kevin Liptak, and I, as Jim laid out, that a U.S. fighter jet has been shot down over Iran and search and rescue is underway. I will note that at this point, there is very little information we actually know about what is happening related to this. We do not know.
I'll give you some information. Aliana, you're getting cooked. You're getting cooked. Your regime is getting cooked. CNN, I'm a Democrat. No, you're all the Zionist regime. You're all the Zionist Wall Street regime. You're getting cooked.
Oh, where the plane went down. We do not know the status of the crew on board, and we are not hearing any official word from the U.S. military or the White House at this moment, though, of course, we do know that they are monitoring this very closely, and obviously this is a very sensitive thing, and so they're being very careful with what they're going to be putting out publicly.
Now, if you're wondering why you're seeing so many of these jets getting shot down, well, first, I want to remind you that many military experts have been saying, like, over the past, 2 weeks, that the U.S. is rapidly burning through their standoff munitions, like missiles that they can fire from fighter jets from a long distance away of their targets in Iran. They're burning through all their standoff munitions. We've seen reports from the New York Times, from Axios, that they are burning through their standoff munitions. So once they start to burn through those standoff munitions, we are going to see fighter jets trying to make entry into Iranian airspace over Iranian soil. They're going to start in areas that they imagine are going to have little to no air defenses, because Iran does have a mobile, decentralized, mosaic sort of air defense system. Meaning Iran knows they talk about this. This is their strategy. They know that they cannot protect the entire country of Iran, every square inch of Iranian airspace every second of the day. That would be ludicrous and insane. But they also recognize that with a mobile defense system, air defense system, and with the ability to predict where U.S. fighter jets and U.S. aircraft are going to be operating, they can do serious damage to the enemy. And that's exactly what we saw play out. They managed to predict that this U.S. fighter jet was going to be making the path that it did in a very, very, very sparsely populated rural region of Iran, and they shot it out of the sky. And then we don't even know. I mean, we have no official confirmation as to whether, both of these fighter jet F-15 crew members managed to get out alive. The U.S. and Israel say one of them did. Iran's given no real indication as to what has happened. But we don't have proof of anyone's story as of yet. It could be that Iran already had one of them and they couldn't find the other one. But, obviously what Iran did do is they did not show their cards. They were not going to say like, oh, yeah, we got both of them. If they did, the U.S. and Israel claim they didn't. But if they did, they weren't going to say that, because if they said that, the U.S. was not going to send in a search and rescue operation. They weren't going to send in A-10 Warthogs. They weren't going to send in Blackhawks. They weren't going to send in KC-135s. They weren't going to send in F-16s. The U.S. did all of that under the premise that they may be able to find these fighter jet pilots. And who knows? I mean, even if they had a GPS, monitoring device on them, you could have had like an IRGC security official running around with the GPS device, like acting like they were an American that was still on the run. It could have been literally anything just to invite the search and rescue teams in. And, well, regardless of what actually took place, the search and rescue teams did come in, and it did not go well for them. That's why Iran has now called on the U.S. Air Force chief to resign following the downed F-15 fighter jet and the fiasco of the search and rescue operation, saying it is time for the U.S. Air Force commander to be added to the list following resignations in the U.S. Army. We also had this is a great Iranian researcher and writer, Arya, writes, according to reports last night at 11:15, 3 U.S. Black Hawk helicopters tried to heliborne in the Yasuj areas, but they encountered Iranian fire and could not take any action and were forced to leave. In another instance, fighter jets above Tehran were forced to flee the scene after encountering heavy air defenses. We do have photos now of what is claimed to be an F-15 that was intercepted over Iran. Still no official confirmation that I've seen of exactly what this pictured is, but they're saying that's the F-15. Iran's military spokesman from Qatam Al-Anbiya said, our new air defense systems are unveiled one after another on the battlefield. Friday was a dark and humiliating day for the American and Zionist enemies, shooting down many of their aircraft. We'll prove to the world the humiliation of the cowardly enemy. In total, this is the destruction of U.S. military aircraft since the war began, Operation Epstein's Fury. So a 110 million F-35 was hit and damaged. Reports indicate it was beyond repair. We also had F-15E Strike Eagles, 3 shot down over Kuwait, 1 shot down over Iran, each of them $90 million. A A-10 Thunderbolt II, 1 attack aircraft shot down by Iranian surface air missiles. I have seen some claims that 2 of these Thunderbolts were shot down. We don't know exactly whether it was 1 or 2, but at least 1 we have proof of. $18.8 million for each of those. 1 E-3 Sentry AWACS was destroyed at the Prince Sultan Air Base. Now estimated costs of $700 million. 2 destroyed KC-135s and 5 were slightly damaged, as they say, costing each $40 million. 1 HH-60M helicopter in Iraq and 2 60Ws damaged over Iran, each costing $20 million. And this number is outdated. It says 17 MQ-9 Reapers were shot down, but there's actually more than that have been shot down. Over 10% of all the Reaper drones, MQ-9 Reaper drones, were shot down. Each of those is $30 million plus. And there's been a handful of Israeli drones that have been shot down as well. So it's becoming a very, very expensive affair. And I don't know what to make of this. US CENTCOM hasn't tweeted in over 30 hours since they falsely claimed that their fighter jet didn't get shot down. And then it came out that it did. So 30 hours, radio silent, US CENTCOM, maybe, just maybe, the missing pilot who got shot down was the one running the US CENTCOM Twitter account. I guess we'll never know. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or GiveSendGo. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.